They had been being pitched Watson Assistant by some of our folks for a while, went through the game and said, I get it now. Now I
Mm,
get it. This is so obvious. And it's not so obvious. It's like kind of like common sense, not so common. Being intentional about an experience, like for example, we had an experience one time, it was a candy machine, drew a bajillion people into the booth. Did
mhm.
it draw the people we wanted? Probably not. The data showed that it didn't perform. If your intention is just to draw random people and get a bunch of people in the booth, and maybe you need that because you want some attention, okay. But what was the intention behind that? Now, I'm so fortunate that I have leaders that are intentional about our strategy as an events organization, that we have to have intention in everything. What industry, what audience, what do we want out of this? Do we want leads, or do we just really want people to love us as a brand? So intentional about what is your objective, and then, okay, how am I going to achieve that? And what are some unique ways that I can do that? And one example is the customer care activation I was sharing with you, which I think is a great example of taking a number of tactics that are very hot right now, and telling a story without actually showcasing the technology, but emulating the technology. So we basically had a team come to us and say, we really would love people to understand Watson Assistant better, which is basically a tool that's used to enable intelligent virtual assistants. And I had for a long time been wanting to do some sort of gaming activation, to which many of the folks inside our company were saying, gaming, well, I mean, that's Fortnite, that's teenagers. What does that have to do? But our studies and our research has shown that gaming is so pervasive. It's a 10x billion-dollar industry, and COOs, CIOs, CEOs are gaming. On the hunch of that, I said, let's create this game that will allow us to emulate what the life of a contact center agent is. And what we did was we layered in all of the different, again, as a metaphor, all the different features of Watson Assistant, like natural language,
Yeah.
intelligent search, self-serve tasks, to the point where they in the game saw how much easier everything got. And we give them a performance, they get on a leaderboard, and then we show them what it was like with and without the automation. And I tell you, it has been such a big hit. And we had actually a COO from one of our major brands. They had been being pitched Watson Assistant by some of our folks for a while, went through the game and said, I get it now. Now I
Mm,
get it. Okay. And we actually had a follow-up jumpstart project with him and that team. And so the intention of that activation was that people would walk away understanding the various components of automation and AI that Watson Assistant does. And it accomplished that. And it wasn't a demo that you sit there and you're looking at a screen and all the details. It was a fun, competitive game, visually beautiful, and it tapped into what we know is something that really attracts people right now, and that's gaming, as well as being competitive. So we looked at kind of the attributes of that individual we're trying to reach: competitiveness, fun,
mhm.
beautiful,
Yep.
digital. We looked at all of that, and we looked at how we could do this at a top level to really drive the interest to go deeper. We didn't really know what we were going to do when we started. We were just like,
Yeah.
we want it to be a game. We know we want these things to come out. Let's just iterate and work through how we can. And it was a 4-minute experience, and then it became a 2-minute experience. And so we really just worked through that and iterated on those elements, and I think achieved the goal.
I like how your engagement works through your value proposition to a degree. It's product based. The two examples you gave in terms of story of talking about intentionality, beginning with the end of mind, you're saying like, okay, we did one thing that we're like, okay, we're going to draw people in, but we drew all the wrong people in. It didn't really have
Right.
intention. It was just this thing
Right.
that was cool. But then we did something with intention and the results from that, like what it's possible to do in the in person setting when you know what you're trying to gain and then you build engagements or build themes and concepts around those, it's powerful. It's just
Yeah.
different.
And by the way, that was really predicated by talking to the sellers and them saying, people
Yep.
don't really get what Watson Assistant is, because a
Mhm.
lot of people think Watson Assistant is a virtual assistant. No, it's the backbone to help you build intelligent. virtual assistants, right? And so how
Mhm.
can we show that? And we were able to show it. So that came from the feedback of talking to the sellers and finding out this is what they're struggling with. It's very frustrating at the beginning of the game because we start you off without Watson Assistant. So all of these requests are coming
Mhm.
in. We're trying to give a person a
Mm.
taste of what it's like if you
Yeah.
don't have that virtual automation. And from the lens of an event marketer, this is a frustrating game. Like, why would we want people to play it? But that's the whole point because by the
Yeah.
time they get to again, beginning with the end in mind, by the time they get to the end of the game, they go, oh man, that's so much easier. I get
Yeah.
it. We had
Yeah.
so many people say, I didn't realize there were so many things that went into a contact center agent having to answer a request. We're doing educating as well as showing the solution, the problem, and the solution in context.
Yep.
So all those things factor into whether you really achieve the objective.
Connecting the dots for people. That's part of what you're doing in an event on the show floor is you're trying to connect the dots. Actually, one of my sales reps told me the other day, we built this trade show booth for a client and she was on the show floor just hanging out and seeing about they're a client, they do multiple shows. So she's trying to see what's going on in the booth and how things are working. And these two guys walked up to her and they were like, "Hey, what do you do?" Because she had the badge for our client.
Yeah.
So she's explaining their product. And then about a half hour later, one of the either executives at the company that we work with came over to her and was asking her questions. What's going on? Hey, thanks for the build. We're so happy, blah, blah, blah. And she tells him this story. And he's, oh man, we really got to work on this messaging, huh? And it's like because they don't know by looking at the booth and being in the space and seeing it just, the dots didn't connect.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because the booth looked great. Everything was awesome. But now, like when we go back to the drawing board with them for show 2, 3, 4, whichever it is, that's the conversation where it's going to start is okay, last time the messaging didn't work. And you got to connect the dots when you're in person for people, whether it's games or messaging or the experience. It's gotta connect the dots.